Hey, Hood asks, why do y'all think it's bad for the government to dismantle the education system? Doesn't that mean it'll be in the hands of the state? Why is that not better? I'm genuinely asking, so don't get up under here with no disrespectful stuff. Well, I hope this video helps. Here's a picture of Ruby Bridges, somebody that was denied access to education under the guise of states' rights. She had to be escorted into her elementary school by National Guards because the state of Louisiana believed it was their right to deny black children of equal access to education. States' right. Here's a picture of James Meredith. This happened in the state of Mississippi where he was being denied access to Ole Miss University because in that state, they believed it was their right to deny access to wherever they wanted to in their institutions. See, historically speaking, states' rights has never really benefited us, and literally it was used to justify keeping us on the plantation. Speaking of the plantation, you know what was illegal? Reading. They wanted to use states' rights to keep us on the plantation where reading was illegal. And education in our country is a civil right, but when it's left to states' rights, we see that certain people in our community will not get access to it. The descendants of the Confederacy always said the South will rise again, and when we see the dismantling of the federal education, that's one of the notions of the South rising again. Here's a picture of these women known as the Daughters of the Confederacy. When we leave education up to the states, individuals like them get to teach our children that not only was slavery beneficial to our ancestors, the Civil War was all due to those tyrants up north not being able to let us folks down south live our lives, where they wanted to keep us on the plantation again, where reading was illegal and was all left up to the states. Those women of the Confederacy, they literally bake in the lost cause narrative into our curriculum. What's the lost cause narrative? It literally interprets the Civil War that downplays the role of slavery and the cause of war, emphasizing that it was about states' rights and secession. You know, some folks' argument is that we need to defund and dismantle education because they ain't doing a good job. Our children read below their grade levels. They suck at doing arithmetic and science. This obviously proves the federal Department of Education not doing a good job. And when y'all do that, I like to point out that all those issues are symptoms of lack of funding, which means that defunding or dismantling this department will not help in those things. I would argue it makes them worse. Think about it. It's not ironic that down south, they love talking about states' rights and thinking about how the incarcerality of black men, the criminalization of black men is used to justify a lot of their profits, like in the prison system, right? Here's what we think about Head Start. That's something that's given to us by the Department of Education. Here's what it says. Compared to siblings who did not attend, Head Start graduates demonstrated improved educational attainment, adult health status, and wages, and decreased grade repetition and incarceration rates for black males. When we leave education up to the states and we see that things like Head Start decrease incarceration, they're going to make it where you want to be a property of the state, which means we have to have a decrease in funding of education. We see that the Head Start stats show that. This current administration wants to privatize education, leaving it up for the corporations and making it where our children that's in inner cities throughout this country, especially down south, is left out to fend for themselves. That usually leads to them having all type of issues with, addiction and leading to incarceration. Let's explain further why the orange man wants to get rid of the Department of Education. Oklahoma ranks 49th in the country, and you see that the entire state voted for him. Not only is it a direct correlation between being educated and voting for the orange man, we know in states like Oklahoma, where they receive federal funding, they state didn't really invest in public funding. So we know that if you take more educational funding from states like Oklahoma, it is literally takes the quality of education more down. Now, y'all know my motto is education is elevation, and I believe that to be true. The reason why they're dismantling education and defunding it because they don't want us to be elevated. Think about it. Research over me search.
We have some breaking news right now. The Department of Education is threatening federal funding for K-12 public schools across the country. Today, the Department of Education sent a mandatory notice to states and schools across the country requiring them to attest that they are no longer conducting any diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI policies within the school within 10 days of receiving the notice. And if they fail to attest to it, then they could lose federal funding completely. In essence, this is an attempt to potentially defund public schools that don't comply with Donald Trump's executive orders. In a new statement, according to the Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, federal financial assistance is a, quote, privilege, not a right. And many schools have flouted legal obligations related to DEI by using DEI programs to discriminate against one group of Americans to favor another.
My papa grave, I agree. States' rights is a dog whistle for racism, always has and always will be. And anytime these folks start talking about states' rights, it's usually deployed in a way to rob somebody else of theirs. That's not coincidental. States' rights was used to keep particular people on the plantation where reading was illegal. States' rights was the argument that was used to overturn Roe and be able to rob people of their reproductive rights. Right now, disabled people will be denied education all under the guise of states' rights because my state gets to dictate which one of these disabled folks get access to the classroom. Or degrading the environment and causing pollution, that is my state right to do what I want to do. If I want to pollute this whole damn thing, guess what I'm going to do? States' rights. Same states that love to weaponize kids' rights against the LGBT community will be the same states that say, hey, it's our right to make these kids go to work. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to hear nothing about no child labor laws. That's a state's right. Think about it, Beth. These are all the ideas that came off top of the head right now. Imagine if I did some research and gave you a much more extensive list of all the things states' rights has been deployed against in terms of robbing somebody else's rights, huh? Education is elevation.
This whole rollback of segregation law thing got me cracking the fuck up because imagine I'm drinking water and a bitch come up to me and say, hey, you can't drink out of that water fountain. That water fountain is not for colors.
Whenever Ruby Bridges makes an appearance, I like to mention that she is just 3 months older than Denzel Washington. This is not ancient history. This is current events. And it's something that we should always point out because they like to play with us and say that we're living in the past. Meanwhile, they're trying to drag us back to it. They love to act like the 1960s and the 70s are ancient history, but love to try to take it back to 1870. When I start getting into the archive and the symbols of how we dress up the archive, you know, history, and I say the archive, I think about how black and white images are made to see it being distant in the future or distant in the past, while trying to make it seem like we didn't came so far. But when you see digitized color images, it showed that it's more in our recent past than we like to give it credit for. Ruby Bridges and Denzel Washington is the same age. Anytime I hear about Ruby Bridges being brought up, I love to point out that she has an Instagram page, meaning that this living person has memories from when she was denied equal access to education, when she had to have an Army National Guard escort her because certain folks believe the way that her parents paid tax dollars should not afford them the same education that the white parents that pay tax dollars, huh? Education is elevation, and man, this comment right here.
This just in. Elon Musk is saying that they got rid of the Department of Education. He's saying the Department of Education is no longer. Do y'all know what that means? Do you know what it means that the Department of Education is no longer? Trump is literally going to shut down the Department of Education. What does that mean for America? What does that mean for our children? I want y'all to really think about this. This is not about Democrat, Republican. What does that mean? Where are these kids going to go? Voucher programs, they all aren't going to be able to fit into those schools. So what are you going to do with all these kids? Special needs services, lunch services, before and after school services, special needs services. All of this is on the line with the Department of Education. Some of these services, every family benefits from. He's cutting it, getting rid of it to the most vulnerable Americans. This is what y'all chose.